Hey there folks, and welcome back to another 600 SP Tryouts. In 600 SP Tryouts, I am doing the GR Super Race Car 2019. In other words, the nickname I give it, the Supra. So the Toyota GR Super Race Car 2019, or in other words, the Supra, I'm going to call it from here on out. It's not a bad machine overall, hitting about 512 horsepower, 512 horsepower to 542.8 foot per pound of torque. I don't know what that is in European sense, but you know, it's think less as always. But the things you can do is you can grab turbos at best and tires and stuff. That's really about it you can do to it at the end of the day. It does weigh a bit more than normal, I will say. Of course, because you have to put weight down some cars and stuff, because some cars are a lot lighter, and this is one of those cases. But yeah, just to say, it has an inline 6. I don't know what engine type says none. But it definitely has an inline 6 for the most part, because it's literally the same motor as the base Supra in some ways. Besides, you know, the base one can have more performance and stuff. I think the base one can hit like 600, 700, that such. But the Supra is not overall, not a bad car at the end though. Should it be called the GR Supra? No. It should be called the Supra. But now onto the cosmetics, which yeah, the cosmetics is technically not much, but there is some things you can do. You can change the rims, of course. The base rims you just can't do any alteration to, but the custom ones you can change the size if you want to. If you really want some donkers on your race car. But otherwise, technically not much on that part, because you can't change the spoiler, you can't change the front pieces or anything. However, you can change the headlights, which, yeah, I gotta say, putting those yellow ones on, night and day, oh my god, that looks so much better. You can also just take out the print of the sidings of the tires too if you want. Such. Which I'm not surprised these race cars are going to have that specialty overall. Now onto the tuning part, which the tuning part I had to do, I took a lot of measures compared to the Viper this time and increased the height and suspension. I tried to focus that on as much as I could, try to squeeze as much as I could. So as a result, you get a car that doesn't freak out too much, but it will freak out in some instances and stuff. And then the spoiler whip is like all the way down, basically. So that's the trade-off you're gonna get if you want all that speed, so to say. And then the ballast I put like 36, so it's not a whole lot, but it does make a bit of a difference. And then I use a manual transmission because some race cars are okay with manual transmission because this is a Supra. Supra will have a modern transmission, which, when compared to a racing transmission to its manual transmission, it is not that much different. You might lose a little bit of acceleration in terms of the racing to manual, but that's about it. So now onto the race, or the time here, which I'll just say this, the Supra basically race circles around the Viper at the end of the day. I'm not going to be surprised, because there is a trade-off to that such, and I'll mention that later. But for now, the GR Supra race car, or the Supra, is an interesting race car. It won a good amount of races, and yes, I could check the races in this one because to say this is a real-life race car, at least. But looking at this AI saying, and hopefully this AI saying is right, if it's wrong, well, it is what it is. It basically has covered 317 races since 2022, apparently. Resulting in 79 class wins, 20 overall wins, and 207 podium finishes. So overall, I would say that's not bad. I mean, that's like substandard good. Apparently also continuing onwards, it did 68 class victories, 202 podium finishes from over 500 starts and 106 sim races. Yeah, I would say overall that's not bad. That's not crazy though, compared to like many other race cars of yesteryears and stuff. But it is something to take out. The most interesting thing I gotta say about this race car though is that it kind of retains all the parts of a regular production car, because it's even got infotainment still. You got the infotainment. It just, they took was essentially the racing on the outside, but they kept all the inside of the production car at the end of the day, which I gotta say it's not a bad thing to do. And considering, I guess it's just good enough with the race style and stuff to be like that instead of, you know, what race cars would have, which is just like a digital interface and stuff. But yeah, I gotta say, for the times for this car, I'm not gonna be surprised it's gonna be that good, because to be honest, this thing is just overall just faster than the Viper, which again, I'm not surprised, because in comparison from the Supra, the Viper was pretty heavy in regards. But yeah, you're probably wondering why do I call it the Supra, because essentially it's a BMW Z4 underneath the skin of the Supra at the end of the day. This is why I call it the Supra. Because it is a Supra. Because, do I consider a Supra? No. Do I consider a Z4 that looks better? Yes. At the end of the day. But this is why I call it the Supra. This is the nickname it's gonna have for the rest of its life. So say. Because it just sounds better at the end of it. Oh, don't mind my feet. Overall, the Supra is basically a behemoth, I gotta say, in terms of racing pedigree and stuff. So at least it kind of represents that, but it's not like, you know, the craziest level, but it's there. It's so sad. I mean, at least it has the one thing I'll say about the Supra. At least it has its motor, where the Supra of GT500 doesn't have its motor. That had a Celica motor, which, you know, correlates that, you know, the Supra was part of a Celica family. But still, though, at least this has its motor. At least you can give it that. But yeah, you have to give it that. But on to the best lap, which, yeah, so for 114.548, I'll just say this, it already beats the Viper. I think that did like a 114.7, let me just see here, just in case. But as such, but yeah. I think. But yeah, barely beats the Viper. Okay, I take that back. The Viper did 114.557. So this is doing a 114.548. So sorry. I'm kind of crazy about that. Yep. Now on to, let's see if it does much quicker, or does it just keep it the same? Because I will say, when it comes to this track, it gets tricky to how to really pull a faster lap at the end of the day. I try to think about, you know, better swing abouts, or, you know, better gaps to jab into at the end of the day, but, you know, it's just very difficult. There we go through the last straightaway here. On to the mark. And we get 114.435. It definitely is a bit better, but not much. Now on to the next track, which is Trail Mountain Seaside. Yeah, I guess I forgot to mention the track. That was Grand Valley Highway South Reverse, in case you want. But Dragon Trail Seaside, we're at. This is the balanced track I picked for ever since the 600 pp, which I need to get back to those cars too and return them and such. But to say about the handling and basically the stats overhaul, I would say the handling is about 4. It's pretty good in that remark. The acceleration 4. The speed, I would say about 3. It hits about 180 straight, but that's really about it. It's getting such. So yeah, overall, by momentum and stuff, it delivers a pretty good lap times, and it kind of showed it as a trade. Because I will say it does trade something unlike the Viper, which is you technically can't do a full lap with this in that endurance race unless you lean. If you lean, you're fine. If you're not leaning, then you're not gonna get it. You have to like quick pit and stuff. Which my goal is just, you know, not lean. Unlike the 700 PP endurance, where you kind of just enforced to lean. In this case, I just try to not lean because I want to show the car's potential at the end of the day. Like, how good is it? You know, gas reliability at the end of the day. Does not burn that bad or other such. But yeah, there's other thing to mention looking at the head cam, or look at the cabin cap here, or cabin cam. I do love the infotainment speedometer too. Because you can see both the numbers, the miles per hour and the kilometers per hour. Yeah, this only shows the kilometers per hour. But not surprised, it's just the Japan version of the Supra. But yeah, so if there's anything else to mention about the Supra, I just hope for like anything in the future for this car. I hope it becomes much better than the BMW collab that is the Supra. Because I will say, I like the Z4. The BMW Z4 is actually one of my favorite BMWs. But when Supra did a collab, when Toyota did a collab to make the Supra, this was your ideal for the collab. To be honest, because, and here's the worst part, when it came to the comparisons between the BMW Z4 to this car, there was most of the cases, the Z4 was a lot more performance than this car at the end of it. If there's one thing this car has, it looks better. As a Z4, it would look so much better. As a Supra, though, debatable. Because yeah, that's the one funny thing this car has. That's the one thing I'll give it. Otherwise, the horn's weaker, the horsepower is weaker, everything else is kind of weaker. It's just, you know, treaded and, you know, flavored by Toyota standards. So it's like, at the end of it. Maybe if anything better, maybe it has a dipstick, an oil dipstick perhaps. But that's really about it, what to really say at the end of it when it comes to Supra. It's not a bad car, and it's not a terrible car. It just hits that in between of mid-good, I would say. And if that's what Toyota wants, Toyota gets at the end of the day. It's just, you know, it's just they don't produce either. I think what it was because they don't produce inline 6s anymore, so they asked BMW for that such. So they basically just gave them the schematics to make a Z4, but ladder it with the Supra looks at the end of it. But you do have it, it's just, you know, at the end of the day, this is not what people ask for. What people ask for is a pure inline 6 Supra. I will note, if they just turned around and just took the motor and then gave us the body and everything else, I think people would more likely like that more than, you know, just cover it in a Supra suit at the end of it. Because people would be down with that more than just, you know, you really just took a Z4 and turned it into a Supra. And then not only that, BMW laughs at you as they make a better horn and better horsepower of their own version. If there's one thing I'll say about the Z4, it looks ugly in comparison to this. So, you got me on that. But yeah, if I had to say this is a Supra, this is not a Supra. Not to me, it's not. Now, if you're gonna have a Supra nowadays, just give us the Supra with the Celica motor at the end of the day, which is the inline 4. Just screw it. Need a lower engine displacement anyway, so I don't see why not. give us that and just give us freaking a hybrid motor. Or heck, just turn around, just slap the freaking one Toyota sedan's motor in it. Should be good. The Crown. So just take the Crown's motor and modify it a bit more. Unless that motor is heavy, then never mind. And I didn't think it would be though. But oh wait, no, I take that back. It's gotta be because the minivan, the Alfred has the Crown's motor too. But yeah, overall on Dragon Trail, yeah, overall just better time. They're hitting 150.992, which compared to the Viper, kind of night and day, as the Viper only did a 151.790, so that tells you how great its momentum is at least. Now on to the speed department, which the speed department might be the troublesome part about this car at the end, but and only tad troublesome. It's not a huge problem. It's just, at least unlike something like the 86, this ain't gonna have like huge problems. So. But you said, I think it hits basically around 181 or 2-ish miles per hour, which is not crazy quick, but it's a little bit good than I anticipated. I figured it hit like only like 178 or something. So, you know, it does its job and such. I just do hope, like in the future of Toyota's case, they make a more interesting sports car than this. Like maybe, I mean, hopefully the MR2 kind of fixes some things, but you know, we'll have to see. Because that is a specialty car, I gotta say. Considering not a lot of Japan manufacturers do MRs, and they don't do them, you know, when they do MRs, do them not cheap, where Toyota turned around and made a cheap MR, which, gotta say, the most unique thing possible, I gotta say, in that regard. The problem, the MR2 of that time was very loose on traction and stuff, and then the MRS, not a lot of people like the MRS because they were trying to compete with the Miata with that, which, no, that's not how we do it. If anything, you should have the FRS do that instead. Or SFRS, I can't remember what it's called. But that's still a prototype, but they do plan to make that a production car, apparently. But the MRT is going to be interesting because it's going to be powered by a 3-cylinder Suzuki motor. And then the Supra, apparently they're bringing it back, but they're going to add your inline 4 hybrid or something. I'm not sure what exactly it is. Maybe hopefully this time not covered in a Z4 body at the end of it. Otherwise you get the Supra! Behold! It's not gonna be as great as the Mark III, but it'll do its job. Also, again, I'll say loosely, because as I said, the Supra race cars, when it came to the Mark IV on that. Yeah, this is Mark V, I will say. The Mark IVs were... The problem about the 2JZ is that it's a heavy, clunky motor, but it did deliver the horsepower. It definitely delivered horsepower, because you can get like almost 2,000 horsepower probably at this point. In terms of tuning regards. Last record was 1,000 horsepower. Now they can go even further beyond. This is the go further beyond. So. Overall, the Supra, basically a fun car. So. I remind myself how long it's slapstick when it comes to these, because these are just 2, and yeah, it still takes like 2 minutes and stuff. But 2 minutes 10.970, that's pretty good, I guess. In regards, it's like very close to the margin I just perfectly want. Sadly, I'm just gonna say on Advance, it doesn't hit it, but damn, is it close. What we get here is 210.358. It tried its damnedest, but I'll just say it didn't. It was like super close though. And now onto the, the drive cam. or the best lap. But yeah, the same goes. I just keep it to this cam so that way you can see how I lean in the turns and stuff at the end of it. I would think this is useful or not. I'm not sure. Never figured that out. I think it would be, because then it tells you how much I win. And such. Yeah, as you can see, it try to freak out every now and then, but it gets back into control. Just got up to suspension and the frequency, or the high end frequency. Yeah, don't mind the Cup Car Volkswagen Scirocco Grateful. It's just to be honest. Oh, I don't want Mitchie's just yet. I'll wait till later, but yeah, I technically don't have much to really say about the Supra besides the decal. Cause I will say that H&R is a huge indication that BMW. Because I will say that's also on the M4 too. Which I am curious about that car. Very curious how well that's gonna do. I assume not gonna be that great, but I just know out of all the races I've seen it do in the endurance of the M4, that thing burns like no tomorrow compared to like the Supra here. The Supra, I guess, sort of got fixed the M4's problem. In that matter, but I'm not sure in regards. It's very weird. Here we go, onto the big old straightaway. Deliver what could be the time. I thought I had time here of 209, but nope, it was not 209. It's a 210.284. Bummer. It is what it is. Also, this might be one of the cases where I think the black rims are okay, because it's masked with the black paint. So what it's gonna do? Not jack stuff. I'll just tell you that much. You can do the World Touring Car 600 as I present. Beware of the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. If you sit up and see that RGT 85, because prepare for hell. Because that thing is broken as hell. I don't even know why they think it's okay. But anyways, the World Touring Car 700. You can do that if you switch your tires to race hards, which is not bad. It's not bad overall on the sports margin on that part. And then we got 600 and 700 tournaments you can do. Which I will note, the 600 tournament is pretty tough because the White Rabbit is a real asshole in that first two tracks. But otherwise, on that third track, it's fine. So now on to the race, which, yeah, of course, I did halfway point, as always. Which I basically got, of course, the White Rabbit behind me. Because the NSX already went in, because he goes in like every 5 or 6 laps, I would say. It's weird, that's on the, technically the 6th lap, but it says 7. Yeah, that's always a confusing part when it comes to lap counters. You're technically 1 lap in advance. Because they don't want to count the 0 lap. Sometimes. Some games do count that 0 lap though. Can't say if it's better or not, but you know. It's just always weird when it comes to that, because you always gotta think advance about the numbers. So. Yeah, we got some pretty competitors here from the 911, the Mercedes, the Supra RZ, the Impreza 22B. Yeah, which, yeah. The Impreza 22B is impressing me big time, because he's been sticking around in 3rd place several times now. And we got the Mercedes AMG TR, I believe it's called. And then the Hurricane LP610. The WRX STI Type S, I believe it's called. GTR 2017. This is a special case where the guy drives this GTR instead of a Nismo. And we got the SX boy, that is Vigo. Trying to get back up the pace actually, essentially. We got the 8C Capazione. And the Viper SRT10. 10, I can't remember the part that's on that. I don't think it's. I can't remember. It is what it is. DB11, the RB 4.2, the F-Type off, and then back to me. Then back to that. So sorry. But to say, I've been discovering something recently. I guess to say, because that. Oh yeah, I guess I should mention the rank at the end of it. So the rank, when it comes to the Supra GR race car, or GR Supra race car, 2019, I would say for endurance reasons, it's definitely a C on that part, or B. C or B. I'm thinking B for that matter though, like a little B, because you still technically have to fuel at the end of the day, because as you can see, my fuel's dipped a lot less compared to, a lot more compared to the Viper, so you'll have to pit at some point here. Unless you lean, if you lean like maybe 2 or 3, you're good. And when I say when to lean, I would say like the halfway mark of the laps, basically. So it's actually the 7th lap. So 7 out of 12, so it's I guess you see the guy just trying to haul his butt back up here. But yeah, overall in the lap times though, at least this 2:10.711, or not 711, 2:11. So say, but so at least it's like keeping a mark from the REM Amiga at the end of it. That REM Amiga is a freaking white rabbit, I gotta say, Jesus Christ. And probably the biggest problem when it comes to these 600 Torns is that guy. That guy's always a problem because for some reason they make him ridiculous for the corn and stuff. I mean, can he take these cars? Yeah, he is wearing sports sauce, but still, his performance, this guy hit like 650 or something such. It's ridiculous at the end of it. But overall, the endurance ranking, I would say give it B. For sprinting, I would say C for the no fuel side, and then sprinting, just regular sprinting, I would say maybe a B for that too, if they ever do sprinting, but they don't. They just do no fuel sprinting, so you know. Yeah, overall, not a bad car in comparison to the Viper. Where the Viper, for its endurance, it does technically better because of the fact it doesn't have the fuel. It does cover lesser lap times, but that is the trade for its, you know, it doesn't have the fuel. So, well, unless the Supra leans in, then can stay and compete with the Viper at the end of it. But otherwise, yeah, you basically have to deal with that margin. So. Yeah, overall, the Supra is a very interesting car, I must say. I shouldn't really, you know, give it that much crap, but it's just, you know, this is just Toyota's excuse at the end of the day. Oh, let's just slap a Supra on this unassuming Z4 at the end of the day. There's nothing Z4 about this. It has the same B40, or not B40, B51 motor, and its body structure is kind of similar in proportions. So. But nice try there, Tayo. So. Again. But to say, I've been discovering something, a very interesting tryouts in the future. I've been thinking of doing this 1-to-1, which you're probably wondering what I mean 1-to-1. I mean 1 horsepower equal 1 mile per hour. So, in other words, if the car hits 100, it can have 100 horsepower. If the car hits 150, it can have 150 horsepower. So I've been doing like a horsepower ratio to the miles per hour at the end of that. So making an interesting build, and that GTO was that case, I will say, at the beginning there. In touch. So I've been doing that, For the GTO's case, I did a 1.5 to 1, I will say. And yeah, hitting at 240 horsepower, you could probably guess if you divide that, you'll get 160. Or divide, or I don't know, that's like, no, you technically lose that amount. Or no, you gain that amount. No, you lose that amount for miles per hour. But yeah, basically hit around 160 at the end of it. And such. Yeah, that car is already set, and you know, I gotta say, very interested in my brain to like that. It's like, oh, you know, this might be the most balanced setup I can kind of think of. So it's like, yeah, there plans to be a 2 to 1, 3 to 1, you know, etc. So it's like, just see how interesting cars get that way. And yeah, I gotta say, doing that, also you get you get a big load of money too on top of it for doing that method. Because I do like a custom race with that build, and you get like 100 grand. It's like, holy crap. I will note though, racing hard tires, because one, I can't do sports hard tires. I would do sports hard tires, but the problem is, because of Gran Turismo not locking the tires unless you use race hard tires, you deal with this kind of condition where, you know what, you might as well just stick with sports hard tires and call it a day, basically. So I will say it kind of beats in the whole thing of, you know, just keep it out of Le Mans set up at the end of the day. Because I will say, for the setups that are less than the 600 pp, I will say I do 6 to 12 tire burnage, because I might as well keep that whole saying to the cars at the end of the day. Yep, here I go, pitting in just a bit for fuel real quick. Hang on, I need a sip real quick. So that. But yeah, I've been kind of doing that, and it's technically probably the most funnest thing I've ever discovered. I guess it almost feels like, why hasn't, like, you know, companies done this, or, you know, racing companies haven't done this, where it's like 1-to-1 of the car, like to show the potential how good this car is. Like, for example, the GTO, it's a heavy car, so as a result, it at best getting that 160 miles per hour. That's really good, because that's, I will note, I took drafting in regards of that, but so technically it does less. But the reason why I take a draft in regards is because that way you have that extra leeway in the transmission. So it's like, because otherwise that would be a tight-ass transmission. I wouldn't like that. Because yeah, this does limit a lot of things in regards. Because I will say, no matter what, all race parts, besides the interchangeable parts like the mufflers, air filters and stuff, that's the only things I'm not allowed to change. But like everything else, you need to have full weight reduction, you need to have spoiler, you need to have the front lip, you need to have the wide body, the side panels, and stuff like that. You need to have all that. I will say that is a requirement, because I don't want to have a unspoiler looking car at the end of it. I will say I might do a alternative build to that such, but for now I'm just going to have it that way. That way it's so much easier, and you don't have to pay a lot, because you won't realize about that. And engine upgrades if it really needs it at the end of it. Because for the GTO, it didn't need it at all. So considering I have like engine tune up of 77 and such. Yeah, that's the thing to mention in terms of my vlog side of things here. And such. Yeah, that's the thing I've been discovering. So far I've only done to the GTO. I do have another candidate of car in the future here. Now I'm gonna do a 1-to-1, which is mostly gonna be a K car or something small, because I will say the size is gonna matter about this too, because I'm just gonna say, if a big truck got a 1.5-to-1 build, it's not gonna be pretty. I'll tell you that much. I think at best, I'm gonna assume it's gonna hit like 150 miles per hour. And I'm giving it generous on that, because it could hit like only a 140. And it's only gonna get like 200 horsepower at the end of it. So yeah, this is just something I just thought of. And I gotta admit, it makes things a lot more balancing in this case. Because then, people, if were to try to tune it, they kind of can't tune it because it's stuck at that miles per hour. Unless that tuning does not affect it to where you still can do this to do that miles per hour at the end of it. Otherwise, it's just stuck like that. I will note, if I ever make like a tournament version, I will apply whoever is the middle ground of miles per hour, and every other car has to follow suit to that middle ground. While the lesser ones follow to the lesser ones, if they so happen to be that low. I will say it's going to be interesting, because I'm going to have a case where I'm going to do a production car. I am going to do a race car among that list too. Because yeah, the only thing that's going to make a car talking at the end of the day is if their fuel is that much better at the end of the day. Sorry for hearing that, because that's damn nose being so itchy today. So, such, but yeah, overall this race, not so bad. Mr. White Rabbit's not causing any problems, because as I said, this guy's usually the freaking problem. There is no other contender like him, I'll say. Yeah, I like that sick drift. Woo! Can't do a horn, but that's the other thing to do. Yeah, this car could do drifts, no problem. Yeah, that's overall the Supra at the end there. Hope you enjoyed what you basically watched here, basically. Such. I also did a better, faster lap time. I should mention too, because yeah, 2:10.211. I forgot to mention that. Just slightly faster lap time, but I don't, do that because of the wind speed. But yeah, here's the next grade 4 car here, people, for next time, I must say, because we got the Veyron grade 4, which this is a very interesting one, I gotta say. I'm also kind of surprised because this car could do some sick drifting too on top of it, as you're about to witness here. But yeah, that basically wraps up, people. I'll see you guys all next time. I hope you enjoyed what you watched here, and for now, enjoy this little teaser. Until then, I'll see you guys next time. You guys take care, and ciao.